Here we go. Next question. I feel I have lived my life in a state of confusion. As I practice the 51% rule, I get some clarity. I'll explain that rule in a second. And I apply the idea of watching my preferences to help me know myself. I'm wondering, are there other ways to get clarity on who I am, what I value? How can I be sure of who I am, what I believe? And how can I keep on track to understand my drives and let go of the selfish, mean, resentful past and encourage the honest and compassionate parts of me? One of the things, okay, so I'll give you some backstory, not necessarily on this individual, but on nice guys in general and what the 51% rule is, and then we'll go from there. So if you're a people pleaser, nice guy type, if you've suppressed your emotions or performed and put on a show or whatever it is you've done to try and make people like you or avoid being disliked, as the years and decades tick by of you doing this, you create a greater distance between your actual self and your true self. So the behavior that you do and who you really are starts to really become detached. Okay, you start doing what I think of as method acting. So you're playing a role, but it's like you're watching your own life from behind the glass. Like you're playing a video game. This isn't really you. This is just the character doing the thing that wins the game. And so one of the most common problems my clients have when they come to me is actually a really existential crisis. Like, who the fuck am I? I don't even know anymore. Spent so long trying to be what everyone else wants me to be that I don't actually know what the original source code is. I don't know what I'm pretending away from. I've become the pretense. But all I know is that it is a pretense. I don't know what the real is, though. I just know it's not this. It's a very horrible place to be. It's a sense of being fake without knowing what the true version is. So you're stuck in the fake. You know it's fake, but you can't do anything about it because you don't know what the other place looks like. Now, the 51% rule is an idea I came up with for people who are in this state. Briefly, what it means is if you're not sure of who you are, what you want, what you believe in, you're going to feel very numb emotionally, detached, on the fence about a lot of issues, right? You're not going to be really sure what you stand for, what you like, what you're for, what you're against, what you want, what you don't want, because you're so used to compromising that to fit in. But if you pay attention, you'll notice that there really is no such thing as being completely 50-50 on something. Okay, you're never exactly in the middle if you're honest with yourself. And so 51% describes like what side of the line do you slightly lean towards? Let's say, I don't know, take some political issue like should sex education be taught in schools? And you would be the kind of person that it depend on who you're talking to, what side you would take. You know, if you're someone who's with someone who's really for that, you'd be like, yeah, I can see that's a good idea. And if you're with someone who's against it, you'd be like, yeah, no, fair enough. And if you're with both of them, it's like, oh, I can see both of your sides of your story. That's a real nice guy thing, by the way. I see both sides of the story. It's like cop out, right? But if you're alone, someone put a gun to your head and said, decide and make your decision as honest as you can, or I'll shoot your brains out, which way would you lean? If nobody was going to judge you no matter what, if somebody was going to accept whatever answer, if everybody was going to approve of your position, which way would you go? Even if it's like, I barely feel this, it's just a fraction, like one pubic hair over the line, right? Now, the 51% rule says once you've identified which side of the line you're on, act as if you're 100%. Okay? So if I'm 51% against sex education in school and I want to find myself and figure out who I am, then I should act as if I'm really fucking against it. You know, I should campaign against it. I should be like, no fucking way, not with my kid. And I don't mean pretend that you feel that strongly about it, but more so understand that not feeling strongly about it is the pretense. Okay, being numb to the topic, not seeming to care which way it goes, that's not true. Because a truly authentic person is very clear on their for and against. They don't sit in the middle, they don't sit in maybe. They either care about something or they don't care about something, period. They're either really against it or really for it. They want it, they don't want it. They don't have a because is a non confident position, right? That's a fear based position. Somebody doesn't know themselves, doesn't want to take a stand, isn't ready for a conflict. So if you behave as if it's 100%, you'll find out where you really stand on the thing. You might find going all in on it changes your mind. You're like, actually, I feel like I'm in the wrong place now. So then go all against it. You go, oh, okay, that feels better. And this way you figure out who you are by pushing that percentage out rather than allowing yourself to believe that you're on the fence about anything. You're not allowed to be on the fence about anything until you discover true confidence. So that's just the background to the 51% rule. So coming back to the question, this guy said, he's lived his life feeling confused. He's applying this 51% rule. He's getting some clarity. But what more can he do to figure out who he really is, who he really values, and so on? Well, there's lots of different ways to do it, but you got to start with your baseline position and how you feel about that. And when I say baseline position, what I mean is how do you behave? Because what confuses a lot of people and creates a sense of dissonance and disconnection with themselves is they think one thing and act another. And if thinking is 50% of truth and acting is 50% of truth, then you're canceling it out. I had this in a session just this morning with my client. He was talking to someone and he knew that that person was lying to him. He fucking knew it. But he didn't call them out. He didn't say, I think you're lying to me, or what are you hiding right now? He acted as if this person was telling him the truth. Like he nodded and agreed and said, fair enough. He acted as if he completely trusted everything this person was saying. So his behavior said, I believe you, and his thoughts said, I don't. 50-50 cancelled out. He ends up in this neutral position. He's not for or against. Because you can't say, I know you're lying, and then have your behavior say, I know you're telling the truth. Well, which is it? And the problem is, a lot of people think if the thought is there, that's enough. Nah, the thought and the behavior have to line up for you to find the full truth. So, first and foremost, you've got to have a look at your behavior and how it compares to what you think your beliefs are. So, you might start with just writing down your basic beliefs of, say, what does it mean to be a good person? Right? Or how do I wish everyone was? Right? Or what do I think are the most valuable traits a person can have? These are the kind of questions you can ask to try and identify the beliefs you have about who you are or who you should be. It actually helps to ask like about other people because that's just a projection. If you ask like, how should everyone else be? You're really saying, how should I be? But it's easier to answer when you're talking about other people and, being all judgmental and shit. It's just more detached. So you ask these questions, what do I think is right and wrong? Maybe you bring up a list, go on Google, and you're like, what are the top 10 political divisive topics? And then just pick which side you're on. Play the 51% game, like abortion, for or against, like whatever it is, immigration, for or against. And do it with all of them so you get like your own basic political profile. Remember, you might change your mind on these once you act according to them. But for now, just get them down and then, whatever it is, you should have a big list of traits, beliefs, preferences, and so on of what you think a good person is, who you think you should be based on what you know, and so on. And then next to that, in the column across from it, is how do you behave in relation to these beliefs? So let's say you think everyone should be honest. Well, how honest are you actually? Like the words that come out of your mouth, how often does that exactly represent what's in your mind? Right? How often do you deliberately lie or withhold important truths or allow people to be deceived? Like, does the behavior line up with the belief or not? And as you go down, you'll see that quite often the real confusion you have is not that you don't know what your beliefs are, but that your behavior neutralizes them so that you're in this no man's land in between. So if you think, yeah, everyone should be honest, but you hide your true thoughts and feelings from people all the time, then which one are you? Because you're thinking honest and being dishonest. So you've got to pick a team, align one with the other. So either you go all in on the behavior and say, all right, maybe I actually believe in being dishonest. So now I'm just going to deliberately be dishonest. I'm going to stop lying to myself, at least, about the dishonesty. I'm just going to deliberately lie and manipulate everyone, just stop kidding myself that I'm not doing that, right? And you might find after a week of doing that that you feel horrible. Now, I actually did this experiment in a way. Not as consciously as we're talking about here. I wasn't trying to figure out who I was necessarily, but when I was really struggling with women, I started to do the pickup artist thing, which was a deep dive into dishonesty. Essentially, I learned how to manipulate and deceive women into liking me. I just decided to put aside all pretense. I mean, every guy was kind of doing this anyway, but they're just not framing it like that. Everybody was doing their own basic shit version of seduction. I just decided, fuck, I'm going to go all in on being manipulative. I'm not even going to pretend I'm not doing anything else, right? Like, I'm not even going to pretend I'm being real. And in doing that, and I did that experiment for quite some time, I found it really unappealing. Even when a girl liked me and slept with me after the first few like ego boosters, I started to realize, oh, this isn't how I want it to happen. I'm really not cool with this. This doesn't actually feel like I made progress. And so by going all in on dishonesty, I came to the realization that I really do value honesty. That if I'd rather not have a girl like me and be honest than have a girl like me for being dishonest. I found that out. And so then I went all in on the other side. So I'd gone all in on dishonesty, didn't like it, clearly wasn't right for me, so I went all in on honesty instead, and that's where I've been ever since. So I align my behavior with the belief. Let's say you say that you're pro-life, right? But then you see some pedophile in the news and they're like, you should execute the guy. So you're like, okay, are you for life or against life? Because in your head you're saying pro-life, and in your behavior you're saying kill somebody. So which one is it, right? So get an alignment there. Should we just slaughter anyone and everyone we feel like it? Or should we let them all live? Like pick a side and then act accordingly. And I don't mean go out and kill people or not kill people, but if you're pro-life, then you should be anti-capital punishment, right? You should align up with everything you stand up with should align up with the core belief. And if you don't like that, then you got to find another one. Now you may find that there's a third belief that better explains it. You really don't want people to get abortions, but you do really want pedophiles to be executed. So you're not pro-life or pro-choice, you're some other thing that somehow allows both of those positions to exist. And so maybe you've actually got a position where you're like, babies should be allowed to be born before, it's decided what we do with them. But once they grow up and behave badly, then we should kill them. Right? So that's not actually a contradictory belief, but if you say I'm pro-life, you do contradict yourself. So you may have beliefs like that, especially like political memes and religious virtues and so on, where you've got a belief you're kind of clinging to, but it's actually too contradictory. You can't even live by it. So you need to ditch that and replace it maybe with two separate beliefs and then act according to both of those beliefs. But key is, and this is all covered in my core values course as well, is you got to figure out what your values are. And even if that's just a guess to begin with, align your behavior with them and see how that makes you feel. If you think you value courage, then every day go do something that scares you. If you think you value responsibility, then look at some area of your life that's not going well and try to fix it. Right? If you think you value compassion, then stop interrupting people when they're complaining and just listen to them. Or whatever. Like align the behavior, and that'll either feel right or wrong, especially after extended experimentation. So that it one of the part of the question is like, how do I let go of the selfish, mean, resentful past, like these drives to do things? Well, the fact that you call them selfish, mean, resentful means that your inner belief doesn't align with the behavior. Like you're doing something, but you don't think people should be like this. You just give yourself these exceptions and you justify and minimize your behavior to get away with it. That's what I noticed working with rehabilitating criminal offenders is it's very rare for a criminal offender to say, I'm just going to go do a bad thing. Yeah, I like being evil. Those people do exist and they're fucking terrifying. But for the most part, the thing that surprised me just so much about working with criminals is nearly all of them see themselves as a good person. And they've got a big fucking story about why they did this bad act. Right? They've spent many months, years even, concocting a story for themselves mostly to justify the behavior that they don't actually agree with. I used to work with sex offenders a lot, and they do obviously very horrific, traumatic things to people. And I always thought, yeah, they're just going to be like, yeah, fuck yeah, I like doing the shit. But for the most part, they're like, well, she led me on, and I was put in a position where I had no choice, and I thought it was this and that. And I'm like, why are you giving me a big story, dude? Like, you've already been sentenced. There's nothing I can do for you if you convince me. I realized, oh, that story's for you. You're trying to reconcile your behavior with your beliefs. And if you're doing that, it means your belief doesn't match your behavior. This is guilt I'm watching. This is remorse. You actually think it's a bad thing that you did, but you can't live with yourself if you think that. So you try to turn it into like an exception. Stop trying to turn things into exceptions. Go, look, if this really is my belief, I can't do stuff like that. Not anymore. I have to admit that was fucked up, right? I saw one of the coolest dudes I've ever worked with. He's a murderer. I've told this story before. So he got a life sentence, but he got out on parole, and I was working with him. And his backstory was somebody raped his sister, and so he went and found that guy and shot him. And everybody praises him for this. He was a hero in jail for, protecting his family, so to speak, and all that. But he said, no, 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 no. Nobody should praise me for this because in doing this, I gave my sister a life sentence as well. Me shooting that guy wasn't for my sister. I can't protect her. She's already been raped. That was just vengeance for me. And all it did is make her feel guilty because now she's lost her brother as well as being raped. Because now he's going in prison. She feels like it's her fault. So what was I trying to do there? Just satisfy some like vengeful urge. But ultimately he harmed his sister, which goes against his beliefs. If he had stopped and gone, what's best for my sister, he would have never gone and shot that guy. He would have just comforted his sister and called the police, right? And so when you catch yourself doing a behavior that you have to tell yourself a big fucking story about, understand, hey, if you'd done the right thing, you wouldn't need the big story. There's some belief you have in you that doesn't like what you did, and you have to accept that. You have to understand you have disappointed yourself. We all have. I've done things where I'm just like, what the fuck? And I really want to come up with a story as to why it's okay that I did that, but it's not okay that I did that. There's no part of my core values or my moral, ethical principles that say that that's okay. There's this one story. I was at a party. I was quite young, 16, something like that. And I was in the kitchen area talking, and there's a bunch of drinks on the table that people had left there while they were dancing. And there was some Dettol, which is like a cleaning agent if you don't have that in your country. And I don't know what the fuck came over me, but I grabbed this Dettol. It was like a little dropper thing. It's very, very powerful cleaning liquid. And I dropped it in one of the drinks. I don't know why. I don't know what I thought would come of that. It's like this impulsive, mischievous kind of thing. Anyway, this girl came along. She drank it. She was like, oh my God, what's wrong with my drink? Her boyfriend got crazy. I had to leave or I was going to get my ass kicked. Now, I can't come up with a story that says that's okay to do what I did, right? No justification. There's nothing in my value system or ethics that say that that was the right thing to do, that I can make an exception for that, because I can't. So I have to accept that the guilt and the shame and everything I feel about that behavior, I should be feeling it because I breached my own values. So if you feel bad about what you've done, try to figure out what the belief is that makes you feel bad and then act according to that belief instead of continuing with bad behavior. That's my answer to that question. I don't know how helpful it is. It's the best I can do. But think of it, like I said, in two stages. You've got beliefs and behavior. And all you got to do is make sure they line up. Even if you get it wrong, doesn't matter because lining that up and experimenting with it, consciously aware, will help you figure out what's right and wrong. Like my story about choosing dishonesty and finding out I'm not really into it, so choosing honesty instead. Stop telling yourself you're courageous when you act cowardly. Stop telling yourself that you're responsible when you play the victim all the time. Like, choose one or the other and line it up, and then see how you feel about that.